Welcome to the Real People, Real Business show, where we're talking with business owners who are in the trenches, everyday people who are working hard and have relevant and inspiring stories that you can relate to. Everyone we speak to is actively building and growing their business and is here to share their experiences, lessons, wisdoms, and guidance so you can be inspired to take action towards your own goals. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Vesna Hozjan. She makes beautiful fabric, handcrafted gift bags that are heirloom quality. And she does this to help people with constraints on time, who hate wrapping, who are eco-conscious, or just want to start a gift-giving tradition for using gift wrapping. It takes the love and connection and puts it in the gift-giving process. Welcome to the show, Vess, and thanks so much for taking the time to share your story today.
Oh, Stephanie, so nice to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. Vess is an old friend of mine, and we have like a really funny story. We knew each other way back in our early 20s, and we had worked together in a totally different capacity. She was my vendor, I was her client. And then she kind of moved away. I didn't see or hear from her for a really long time, like a decade or more. And then my girlfriend, one of my best friends, was talking about her friend Vesna. And I'm like, how many Vesnas can there be? And as it turns out, Vess resurfaced in my world, and we have been reconnected for a number of years now. And I'm so happy that we did.
Yeah.
So, Vess, let's hear your story. How did you get to where you are today with this gift-giving business?
So it's there. I would say that it's almost a two-part story, because there's like the idea, the how the idea percolated like originally 10 years ago, and then there's the trigger point of like when I leapt off and decided to do what I was going to do. And so I'll start with the long ago story, which started in 2008. I was working full time, which now 10 or more years later, I realize is like the kiss of death for me. I had two toddlers at the time, and I was working full time. It was coming up on the Christmas season, and my husband at the time, he just wanted to skip Christmas altogether. So that was always interesting to work around. And my mother is in Ontario. She likes to skip Christmas also. So she just sends me money, and I usually just go and get, the gifts on behalf of her grandchildren, or for her grandchildren. And my mother-in-law at the time had just had the beginning signs of Alzheimer's. So she and I had spent the time going to the stores together, and it was, a little bit more painstakingly, right? Because you have to remind her where she was and what we were doing. And so by the time I sat down on Christmas Eve, I was like exhausted, right? And I had plans to host our extended family of 19 for dinner the next day. And I also have a son that is special needs. He lives on the autism spectrum. So at the time, again, both my boys were toddlers, and MJ at the time was mostly nonverbal and a darter. So I needed to get my rest, because the days start and he would just go and he wouldn't tell me what he was doing. And so all of this is like, dancing around me and pressing down pretty hard. And so I sat down to wrap my gifts, all of the gifts. And I start, of course, with the books. And I don't know about you, but most people like wrapping books. They're really easy. They have square corners. They're not odd shaped. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is okay. And then like a couple gifts later, I was like, oh, wow, this awkward toddler plastic thing. And I hated it. And then all that resentment of the last months kind of seeped in. And I just hated it, all of it. And then the next morning, I don't have an official OCD diagnosis, but when I get stressed, everything has to be in its place and, chippy chop. So the next morning, as my family's unopening their gifts, I wasn't there present. I was there in body, but I was running around, shoving all the garbage in the bags and all of that. And I kind of missed the whole point of it. And so the following year, late summer, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And as a very active woman, I bike, swam, whatever, all the sports, I did them. And it hit me like a wet carpet. I had no idea that it could happen to me so young. And it was just a really, really tough time. And with the surgeries came a lot of rest. And I'm not a sit down person. if I'm relaxing, I'm probably moving around the house doing something. So it was a really hard time for me because I don't live that way. And my mom came to visit for me for an extended period of 5 months. And I said to her, Mom, the Christmas season is coming. She's sewn for 50 years. I don't sew. I sewed in like 4-H, which is like the equivalent of Girl Guides or something when I was a teenager. Let's make some bags for Christmas. So we went over to Fabricland, got some really ugly fabric and made basically pillowcase style Christmas bags. I did do a nice French seam. I will say that. That was the only, kind of fancy thing about them. And that year of wrapping was like the best life hack. I wrapped start to finish with wine, with a smile on my face, all of the awkward gifts. And then it continued the next morning when everybody was opening the gifts. Instead of picking up all the paper, I was kind of laughing on the side all by myself. Like I had this like secret joke, and I was like folding the bags and putting them to the side and like, oh, look at me, it's like this. So that's where this idea started. And then I talked about it for 10 years. And one of my friends, she got to the point, I know by listening to some of your other podcasts, Stephanie, maybe I can say the one-line zinger that told me I couldn't talk to her about it anymore. She says, would you just fucking start this bag company? And I was like, oh, I guess I can't talk to her about it anymore unless I have something new to say. So around this time, I was working this is like now fast forward 10 years. So now I'm in 2018, and we had just come back from a 2-week vacation in Nova Scotia. My fella, Paul, he and I share 5 boys together, and my brother and my mom, we went on this beautiful holiday together. But I was like really unsettled because I wasn't feeling like, I loved what the company was trying to do where I was, but I was getting increasingly frustrated. I had been there for a number of years, and the needle if I'm going to work at something, I need to see progress. And if I don't see it, I get like really frustrated about it. And so I was talking with my brother, and I said, I really want to do this thing. And that thing that somebody says to you when you're like, it sticks with you for like a long, long time. And he said, Vesna, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I was like, well, everybody I know will get a really awesome set of bags. So I think the idea started to become more real in that trip. And then about 48 hours back from the holiday into my back to work in my regular job, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And usually, when you go on vacation, it kind of lasts about 6 months and you're like, oh, everything seems a little bit better because you just had a nice vacation and you relax. And I was like, oh, wow, 48 hours. That's not good. So I came home and I said to Paul, I can't do this anymore. And he was like, it was almost like he was waiting for me to come to that own determination. He's kind of like that. He'll let you come to your own answer. He won't tell you. So, and that's when I made the move. I leapt off the bridge.
So what I think is interesting is this is not your first time being an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. You've got this really interesting backstory as well. So what were you doing prior to starting the business?
My career, I guess what I went to school for was in graphic communications management from Ryerson. And so I was in the printing industry for a very long time, which is where we met. And I taught you everything you know about printing, of course. And I worked for a number of really high-end printing companies, like Top Printer in Canada that did all the car books. And, in the printing world, that's like the cream, right? The top of the heap or whatever. And then I worked for a company in Vancouver that, did very, very technologically advanced everything. Like they were miles ahead of all printers, which are typically, very traditional. They don't invest in new technology. And where I worked was that place, which was great. And then I moved down to the US for 7 years and really got schooled on what it was to provide quality and customer service. And, I wasn't schooled in that I didn't know anything, but it took me to a whole new level. I worked with the Nikes, the Adidas, the Microsoft, the Intels, and, the branding those companies, it's very serious, right? Like colors have to be exactly right. And so that's where my my traditional career started. And then when I went to Kelowna, because we moved there after my children were born, because I mentioned my son's needs, and it just felt like it was time to move back to Canada. And I came to the Okanagan and quickly found my way into technology because there's a bit of a, well, no, at the time it was very slow percolating thing, but now it's got a bigger presence in tech. But I started with a tech company and learned iteration. I would say that's, it brought a lot of frustration for me because I'm the kind of person, like I said, I like to see movement and growth. And if anyone is in technology, they probably are nodding their head very vigorously, because it's like you're always waiting for the next release or the next feature to satisfy that customer, especially if you're on the front lines. And so it's like, in a weird sort of way, all of that culminated to providing me this basis for starting Ever-Present Giving. It was just, except that I didn't sew, which is a whole nother story.
One small minor detail, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what you do know how to do is sell.
Yes, that's my background is in customer service and sales. So I do that every day, all day, and I love it. And I would say that I've also gravitated to, like, when I went to the printer in the US, they put me on accounts that basically had fired them, 10 years ago. Of course, they didn't tell me that when they were recruiting me. But I'd walk into those situations and I've always found challenge in that. And I loved winning those customers back. Like and when I was in technology, same thing. There was one, the first one I worked for, they basically had a really first hit product, got all these great customers, and then followed it up with two, sucky ones. And so I came in after that and kind of was like, hey, believe me, we're going to make this good. And, I always stand by what I just, that's what I always, that is what drives me in my work. It wasn't about, the commission on the sale. It was like, taking a customer that was unhappy and then converting them into people that just love the company and the service that they got. So and I guess in all of those threads kind of, they help me where I am today.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a reason though, there's a high percentage of people who come out of the tech industry and become entrepreneurs, right? Because when you're, by nature of the fact, and I grew up in the tech industry, everything you do is a startup, right? Everything
Yes.
you do is entrepreneurial because you have to be at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fun. Very fun.
So this wasn't a process of you just like waking up one day and saying, I'm going to start this business, and then it was started. I think there's some value in people hearing like the process you went through to get to the point where you finally started up.
Well, and that's actually where you segue in, because it was around before I resigned from my, daytime paying job, which, I do miss that paycheck. Okay. Let's be clear. You and I connected almost, I would say not quite a year, but almost a year before. And that was super impactful for me. Even to this day, I talk about when people say, how did you start the business? And you and I spent hours and hours and hours together determining, okay, what is it like? This is before I even had a prototype, if you recall. And we talked about, okay, who are we trying to serve, and what are their needs, and what is their lifestyle, and all of that definition. I can't tell you how important that was to define that. And there was lots of different segments, which, in the last year and a half, I've gone maybe and experimented in each of them to some degree. And because there was merit in all of those ideas, and we just put all the ideas down, we categorized, we organized, and it had me, I didn't realize it at the time. I knew it was an important part of the process, but I can't believe how many times after the fact I've gone back to that information, whether it was working with my strategy and brand designer, right? When we started working together, she started asking me all those questions, like, oh, just hold on a second. I have all that already,
I know
right?
that, yeah.
And like when you're working, I guess, as an entrepreneur, because you don't have the ability necessarily, unless you're backed by mega bucks or something. But I was like, this is lean and mean. We're doing cheap and cheerful here. But I also knew the value of having experts as part of my extended team. And if you're going to work with people like that, you have to be really organized. And because you have all these professionals, yourself and Lindsay of Bright Creative Co. and, even the photographers and different things that I worked with and social media. Like, you have to be able to share your company information in a really easy, digestible way. And so if you don't start with that piece, you're spinning your wheels and you're creating a lot of confusion when you don't need to, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people jump to the sexy stuff, right? And this is where Linz and I have always commiserated, because she'll get people coming to her and say, I just need a logo and I need a brand and I need to do, well, you can't create a brand. You can't create a visual brand. You can't create a brand strategy without knowing what your business is first. So she actually often sends people back to me and says, go do this work first, because I can't be effective. I can't do an effective job. And any good brand strategist, any good designer will know that. I can't do a good job of this unless you know your business first.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's almost like the precursor to the branding process.
I 100% agree. In fact, Lindsay and I have this like long-standing joke, because I didn't get I launched the company or the bags like to the world 3 weeks before Christmas in 2018. And I don't think I had a logo until June, July last summer. It was a joke. And she's like, when do you want me to work on the logo? I'm like, not yet. We got other things to do. And, and it didn't matter.
No,
it didn't matter.
No, it didn't. You didn't even have a website.
No,
but you had a way for people to buy. See, you have had this like textbook entry. I remember the day that you were like, fuck it, I'm jumping. Because there was a lot of conversation before that. Was it the right time? When was the right time? Then you're like, I'm going. And then it was like Tasmanian devil, right? Because you are a doer. You are an executor. And when you're ready, shit gets done, right?
Yeah, I think, and I just to pause on that, because I know that you serve a lot of women entrepreneurs, and I think I know some people do their thing as a side hustle, and I realized I couldn't. Like, I didn't, because of my commitments to my home and my family, and then my job that I had to be like on. I was selling. I have to like do the best job I could. And once I did all those things, I didn't have time for the ever-present giving at the time, which I didn't have a name for it at the time. And you and I were doing our work, and I just felt like I was like, I'm not getting there. And that's, so something had to give out of the things. So just, that's my journey, because I know some people might be like, oh, well, I feel like I'm not gaining momentum. And it might be because you have this, giving yourself the time to do it.
1 foot in, right?
Yeah.
But what I can also say is that that's a reality for some people. Like, I have a client right now who's like, she knows what she wants, but she's still got 1 foot in the academic world, and she still has to maintain that role for a time. And so what my job is with her is to make sure that what she's working, we can piece off what she's working with so that it's the right thing to work on, right? Yeah. And so you were able to make the leap, which was freaking awesome. For those people who can't quite make the leap all at once, we can strategically piece up the work so that you're getting the right things done in the right order, and then you'll be ready to go.
Yeah. And for the record, I have to put my foot back in and, do a little bit of juggling in the next 6 months before my next busier season. So, you know what, I had to make a pivot and an adjustment too. Right. But I'm grateful for that first year of just really being able to do what I had to do to iterate.
So you learned quite a few big lessons, right, in that first year.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about those. What were the big surprising moments?
Well, it's always slower than I would have thought, but I'm learning to live with that now. Because again, I think my nature. I'm a little bit of a, what was the word you used? You called me. You called a Tasmanian devil. Yeah, that thing. But I learned, so number one is you can have an idea going into something. So I originally thought that I was going to take this prototype of a bag and I was going to go to a production house in Vancouver, and because the Okanagan doesn't have those types of resources, and I was going to get them to do the different sizing and the different bags, and they were going to make them. And then all I had to do was have them, presumably in my basement or studio, and go and sell and hit the street. And I quickly realized that wasn't what I was going to be doing. I had some prototypes made up, and then I realized, oh, I want to make this adjustment or that adjustment. And it was a few $100s every time I would, go there, plus a trip to Vancouver at some point. And I thought, well, this isn't really working. So I was like, I need to learn how to make the bags. So then I had that same house. I paid them to basically, they're like, oh, come to our sewing lessons and, in 6 weeks. And I'm like, well, how about you just do a custom one for me? And I stay for 2 days and we figure this out. and because again, my family life doesn't allow me to go to Vancouver every 2 weeks for 6 weeks. So I figured out how to do that. And that was very empowering, but very slow. And because I didn't start with a production house, which I'm so grateful now, is I basically could make the bags to order with a small extension team at the time, to what people wanted. Because I originally thought, well, maybe I'll sell, a bunch of my bags to wineries, and I'll need hundreds of these things. But that didn't go in the full way I thought it would. So then, and then maybe people want smaller bags versus the larger ones. So I'm proud of it in that I didn't go and make a whole bunch, and never mind the bag changed. Honestly, it's a simple thing, but I changed it so much over the last year. It would have been all this old inventory that I wouldn't feel good about selling. So I just kind of really took that part slow, way slower than I thought. And now the benefit of it is I know my bags inside and out. I do sew them sometimes. And, eventually that will be a piece that I definitely pass off. But I'm so confident now about that it helps me when I am communicating with outside help to make the bags, because, I didn't have I'm the kind of person that I can kind of come into something with not the confidence if I don't feel like I'm an expert in it. So I certainly didn't feel like I was an expert sewer. And so when I started solving production problems, because I knew my products so intimately, I was like, okay, I could make this thing anywhere now and go toe to toe with, whoever it is that's responsible on their end. That's just my own insecurity, right? And so that's what I needed to do to get to where I am in the confidence of producing the bag.
So you went in a very short period of time, figured out what production means, figured out what your options were, figured out how to make these things, and then you launched in time for that Christmas season in 2018.
3 weeks before Christmas, by
Right.
the skin of my teeth. With no logo.
Yeah, no logo, no website, but you just went out and you made the mess, right? You were like, okay, let's see what happens. And so what happened?
I learned a lot. I had a group of friends and family that were so supportive over that season. I would say that that was such a, this was just a really beautiful experience. I thought, if nothing else, this is the people that kind of crept up and percolated to. I had a pop-up market, because of course it's the holidays, and it was a pretty slow market just in general, because of course it was a last minute one, and I couldn't believe how many people took the time out of their day to come and just see me and say hi, right? And that goes a long way for people that are supporting entrepreneurs, because they don't have a team that's bolstering them up every day, right? So those texts or signs of support, whether it's social media, et cetera, like that goes so long. So what did I learn over that season specifically? Not to have expectations. So I had done a few little markets, and I'll never forget one of them in which, I did a pop-up one in an office, and I did one at a local school. And out of the two of them, in the height of the Christmas season, Stephanie, I'd sold one bag. And I had to I wasn't used to that, because I was so excited. I was thinking, oh, this particular office, they have really busy professionals. They are going to love this. And either I missed something there. And in the other case, I learned that if somebody's going to a particular event at school and they're not expecting that there's a market, well, they're not going to be interested in what you have to say, because they're not going there for that, right? It's like going to get dog food, and then, my bags would be there. Well, you're not coming to shop for bags, you're shopping for dog food or whatever. Bad example. But, so I learned just how to move through those, because there's, there's some great wins, but there's also some, pretty low, like that. You could arguably say like, and of course to come home and everybody's like, how'd it go? And you're like, I don't want to talk about it. But, here I am laughing about it now, and that's okay. And it just, I think learning how to navigate like a very humble situation is important.
Yeah. And I think entrepreneurship is this like fucker, right? Like it's tough, right? And we have to be okay. I kind of look at failure now as like non-existent, because every opportunity we have, we get new information. So maybe we didn't get the result that we wanted, but we got some good information, right? And
I
that's
agree.
that's what I think has buoyed you, is that you have not looked at these experiences as a judgment on whether you're succeeding or failing, right? Because if you
Exactly.
did, you might have given up after that last market.
Yeah.
Right. So then what happened?
So I went into 2019 thinking I was going to have my website done in 3 weeks.
No,
you
with all
know,
the people you're
I'm,
surrounded
I
by.
know I am like that good, right? And and then figuring out how, I've never done a professional. I just learned. So I was drinking through a fire hose for 2019. Let's be clear, okay? And um, still figuring out the production pieces, getting a website. I had a wonderful friend of a friend do my photography for my first shoot, which was incredible. I've
She's
never.
watching live right now.
Is she?
Oh wait, no, she's
No. Well, if she comes back and watch. Hello, Carla. Anyways, I remember calling her, and she was shifting her business because she's a photographer, and she was kind of trying to move out of it. And she's like, no, I'm not really doing that anymore. And then we got to talking, and then I think this is the essence of the bags that keeps me going is she'd listen, oh, what is this thing you're doing? And oh, it's these beautiful reusable bags. Oh, okay. And it has a story that carries with it. And you could tell that she was like kind of interested. And I said, well, that sounds like a maybe now. And then we worked together, which was great, right? Because when you're doing something for the first time, you want to be surrounded by people that really have a soul match with you. That's how I kind of ran 2019.
What'd you learn in 2019? I mean, you've made lots of progress.
I learned that people love to buy in bundles. That I've had, relative success in my retail locations, and that's been okay. 9 between the Okanagan and Vancouver. And I feel, and then when I released my holiday collection, I realized, wow, there was some real pent up demand for these. And I couldn't believe how many people were like, I'm all in, just give me my set of bags so I never have to wrap again, which was great. My reach went well beyond my family and friends, which I think is an important milestone to kind of know, that you're on the right track. And, the reviews, I wish I had set up my formal review process, because so many people sent me personal messages about, how much they love them, which of course makes me happy, right? Like I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. What else did I learn? I learned that I should do my bookkeeping more regularly. And and I guess if I was to change anything about that last year, it would be to have a better pulse on my the numbers, right? Because I kind of just plowed so fast, so far ahead. And I know that your program definitely surrounds it. And, you're kind of, I just snuck out of it. Okay. And so now I had to, look at my last year and 4 months and kind of go, okay, so what did happen? And what does that mean for going forward, right? It means for me working more business to business. So let's say environmental builders, and if there's, closing on a 24 unit or 100 unit location, and they want to gift their new homeowners with something, I'd love them to put them in my bags, right? Or there's lots of, I think, luxury or high-end products that really lend themselves to being gifted in my bag. So perhaps there's a online or bricks and mortar store that has a product that really, like cashmere, for example, right? Maybe to finish the experience of a cashmere purchase, you put it in my bag, and that accompanies it. And the bundles, people like to have them curated for them, some people, and some people want to curate their own. So I'll be adjusting my website to adjust for that, so people can make their own bundle and be on their merry way. And I learned that people love them enough to keep going, because there are some days that you can wake up with a lot of insecurity. That's just how it is.
It is. I can tell you, I will come banging down your door if you stop producing these, because I bought the bundle when you, on your first
Original. You did. Yeah.
And I will never, ever go back to wrapping presents.
You see, that makes my heart sing.
I used to have to pay my daughter to wrap Christmas presents.
I know.
It was so painful. And there were so many. I finished my wrapping this year in like under an hour. And I was sending you pictures. I'm like, I'm drinking wine.
That's exactly how it should be, Stephanie.
It's all done.
Yeah.
It's all done. And like the guilt associated with all of the paper and all that crap. Oh, I'm like sold for sure. And now I want new colors and some more sizes, and
they're all coming.
My child inside of a bag.
Yeah.
So what's important about what you're talking about with your numbers? Yes, we always need to be literate, right, with our numbers.
Yes.
And we need to always know kind of where we're at. But the important thing is not so much the numbers, but the trend, right? So would you say, looking at your trend from 2019 over 2018, that there is a trend that validates you need to keep going?
Yes, absolutely. The trend is that I didn't know people would want to buy in more bundles versus like for the individual gift, which I know I already mentioned, but that just got my wheels turning. Yeah, the trend that's basically it. It's that the people want to buy them in bundles.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is when you and I first started looking at this business model, you're like, okay, so this is all great and everything, but this is like onesie twosie, right? This is selling a bag by bag. But really, people, when you think about the use case, going back to my technology roots here, the use case is that people want a whole set.
Yes. And I think what ends up happening, because I've had my ear to the ground and people bought sets, when I launched the website and then again in the Christmas season. And what ends up happening is inevitably that really cool or important occasion comes up, whether it's a 50th anniversary, whether it's a wedding or a baby shower and all that. And so they have their bundle that they use for home, which is great. And they can take one of those bags out of their set and gift it on a moment's notice. And, they replenish them eventually. But they're there for those special occasions, because no one's going to go online and go 2 weeks ahead of time, except for a very, unique person, I think. Certainly not me. It's when you need them is when you need them. It's not, you're not thinking 2 weeks ahead generally for, if you're my target market, which is you're working and you have a busy family life. Like it just.
Yeah. I don't want to give mine away.
Yeah. Stephanie.
I've given gifts in those bags before and I'd be like, so.
Did you take them back?
Because here's what you've done.
Stephanie, it's really a beautiful thing to give something away. Okay. Try it.
Well, you made them too nice. So this is one of the things you've done is you've watched and you've listened. And I remember when you were going through the prototyping phase and you were like, this is a non-negotiable. We need this level of quality. So these aren't just like some sad sack one piece of fabric. I mean, these are beautifully designed, beautifully lined. There is intention in every fabric you've chosen, every last little detail. You thought about what needed to be in place in these products, because you knew they would be used multiple times. Even just the little card that comes with it that says, here, like keep a little history of all the different places this bag was, give the bag and there's like a little history written on the tag in terms of who used it before, right? Like those little details have made these, like, they're hefty, they're beautifully made, they are made for longevity.
Yeah, they're for hundreds of years. So what was I going to tell you about that? Because it was, I think if I had a challenge that I need to solve is if you, because I want to spread, basically I validated the idea last year, and people that see that there's, when I just know there's certain people that see them, they love them. There's like this, I've been waiting for this all along. But the fabric bag, air quote, has been done before, right? Many times before. So I guess my challenge in 2020 is how do I, because I don't usually get like an hour to explain why these are so great. How do I get beyond that? That's probably one of my bigger challenges for this year.
And that's okay. Like, I want everybody to know it's okay if something has been done before, because you're going to do it in your way. And it's actually like Microsoft has created an entire business strategy on being a fast follower, right? They very rarely are actually innovating. They'll take a concept that someone else has innovated on, and they'll use their power and their money to make it like even better and more accessible. That's their brand. So it's not a bad thing that something has been done before, because it proves that there's demand. So I guess the question for you is, how are you going to do it a little, or position it a little differently?
Yeah, they will be the most beautiful bag you can buy.
Yeah. I've seen fabric bags before, and they're not all of the quality that you've created.
No.
These are built for longevity. And so you have that brand story, right? That you need to tell
Quickly.
So what's been the most pivotal point in this business so far?
So I was a commission salesperson in my whole career, right? Up until this point. And I always thought that I was a lone ranger, because I would go and, I wouldn't be in the office. I'd be out visiting customers and come back when I pleased and all of that stuff. So that was great. And I had no idea, really, it took me by surprise how lonely the entrepreneurial journey can be. And this leads into the pivotal moment where I woke up one Friday, and it was right after my first online holiday sale, like the best deal. And it went so well. So I've been working really late and up early and all of that good stuff. And I thought, I'm going to squeeze in a 6 a.m. yoga class just to, keep me being the best version of myself. And I got up that morning, and I'll never forget it. It was like, I just thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? What have I started? I don't know if this is. And I was like, I dragged my ass to yoga. And of course, I don't know about you, but every time I go to one of those classes, they say something that like is what I needed to hear. So I was like, oh yeah, I was aware enough to kind of hear it, but still didn't make me feel better. And that night, Stephanie, it was like around 8 o'clock at night, and on Etsy, I got a review from somebody I didn't know that had bought the bags, and it made me cry. Like, she said all of the things that I wanted somebody to feel when they got these. They're so beautiful. I make reasons to walk into the room where they are. Like, who does it, right? And the gifts wrapped themselves as if, Santa's elves had been there. Like, it was this whole long, beautiful testament from somebody I didn't know. And for some reason at that moment, I needed to hear it from somebody I didn't know versus somebody that loves me and could see I needed to hear it maybe. And it made me just go, okay, Vesna, there are going to be days when you are just grinding it out, and it's going to be okay tomorrow or the next day or whatever. Like, it's just accepting that entrepreneurial journey, because you can be a commission salesperson and work for somebody else, but when you are on your own, it's something it's just a fact, I think. And I didn't know.
So the fact that you got that review was not a mistake.
No.
It was not coincidence.
No.
All the work you had done leading up to that, all the work you had done doing this the right way.
And that's exactly.
You had created an experience and a product that was so perfectly attuned to that ideal customer that there was no way they couldn't give you those reviews.
And why it's a pivotal moment is because of my understanding, what a healthy mindset for an entrepreneur is going to be. And also that I felt like it was like, okay, it's validated. It wasn't that one thing, right? There's obviously a lot. So I didn't go on one review and decide to, keep putting step forward, but it was like, okay, this is, I've made it to this milestone, which I thought was super important, right? Because you can have a great idea, but if nobody buys it, it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, well, there's your great idea, and then there's the way that you position it and communicate it, which cannot be underestimated, right? And that's only successful if you have done the work that you did up front to really understand who you're selling to and what they want.
Appreciate.
Because, like just throwing some cool product out there, I mean, that's all that work contributes to how you build your product, how you sell your product, where you sell your product, in what way you sell your product, how you drive more interest and get it in the hand, because people need to have it in their hands.
Yeah.
Right. So we have someone listening live right now to this podcast who has just said, I need to see these. Please send me the link.
Be happy to. I have a website now.
The story behind what you've created is almost more important than the product itself, but it just so happens that the product also has been created in a way that delivers. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Okay, so what's next? I mean, you mentioned you have some pivoting to do and you're always learning. What's going to happen in 2020?
I've kind of defined this year. I want to do 3 things because, of course, you can't do them all. I really want to find more collaborations. So last year, I had the wonderful opportunity to do a collaboration with Kitten Ace in Vancouver and Backpack Buddies. And that came out of just asking, which is a whole story in itself, which maybe we want to dial back to after. But so there was this wonderful collaboration where, a known quality brand, if you've never tried Kitten Ace, it's really great clothes. They're super high quality, and they actually I'm an active, I move around person. And so they keep up with me, which I really like. I don't feel like I'm, sucked into a tube that I can't move. So they have a beautiful high-end brand. And they allowed me to come into their space to share, my gift giving bags to their valued guests and customers. And then I, in turn, collected a donation on behalf of Backpack Buddies. So they're an organization in Vancouver that feeds kids on the weekends. And, it was around the holidays. And as a business, I felt like I had a responsibility to go, okay, what is it that I want to contribute as a human and a business to the outside community? And I thought, what better way to do that? I was really stuck on, I didn't want to do a 1% for the oceans or anything like that. I wanted to give somebody something like food over the holidays, right? Very basic need. And so I got so much out of those collaborations. I met so many wonderful people. I got great feedback face to face. I'm not, my lifestyle doesn't really lend itself to going to markets a lot, which my product arguably could be somewhere there, but that's just not my life, which, we worked that out many moons ago to build a business that's aligned with my values, right? So love of the collaborations, that's a big goal for me because I get a lot out of them. And I think it can really work for everybody if you find the right partnerships. Exploring the more business to business, I'd love to see what a collection of bags could be at a ski hill resort, for example, right? Like somebody goes and visits from Europe and goes to Whistler. Well, maybe they have a branded Whistler set of bags. I think that would be a really fun keepsake from Canada and useful and eco and all that. Builders, real estate agents, all those, professionals that would really, I think, appreciate that finished touch or the eco piece, one or the other. And then the last thing is, which is going to be a really stretch goal for me, is understand how I can really strengthen my e-commerce, right? I've got a Shopify store now. I sort of kind of know what's going on. I've got a great, beautiful following on social media. So how do I now tie that together and leverage it and build and grow? So.
Amazing. Well, I see, what you've done really smart is you have allowed yourself to grow at the pace that it takes, right? And a lot of, I talk about this all the time, but business takes a while, and it takes a while to get traction, even if you're working your butt off, because it's just real, right? That's just real.
I didn't know that before. Like I heard you. It's like when somebody says, "Oh, when you have a baby, like get your rest," all that, and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's going to be different for me." And I was one of those people. I thought, "Oh, yeah," because I remember you talking about it. Slow, steady growth, and I'm like, "Yes, yes, that's good, but I'm going to grow fast." That's just not going to be me. And you were right, Stephanie. Okay.
Well, I don't know that there is one example of the hundreds of people I've worked with where that is not the case. And some people are grow more quickly, some people grow less quickly, but we all grow at a much more intentional pace than we think we're going to, right? And that's okay. And that's actually good, because you're giving yourself the time to actually listen and learn the lessons. And when you listen and learn those lessons, you can take bigger steps, right? So you're not like psycho kind of in every direction, maybe inching forward a little bit. You're intentional, you're watching and then when you take a step, it's a big step, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because it's it's wasting a lot less time, and it's wasting a lot less of your energy. So all of that, what do you wish that you had known when you first got started?
Well, that it's going to be slow and steady, because you look at even, and maybe you have something to pipe up and share on this too, but you can look at social media, right? And it's this, it's a lot of curated material content out there. And you can look at it and think, oh, I'm so far behind. Like if you're in not the right space. So I think, to your question, just to is to embrace that it's going to be the growth that it is, and it's going to come at the pace that you need it to be, and trust that. I think celebrate and track all of the small wins. Everything from, maybe you put a post on one of your social media channels that got some real great authentic comments and feedback. Like that's, to me, a celebration, right? That means that you're speaking to your audience. And write all those things down. Like what my little trick is, I have a little notebook, and every time something like that happens, I tuck it in my book. And then on the days that you're feeling like not so great, you just look at that and remind it of your successes. And lastly, I would say just listen to your customers. It's so easy to have, especially as now I can call myself an artist, I guess. An artist is like, I want what I want. And then somebody might say, well, you know what? I think your gift giving tag is a little bit large, or, it doesn't, whatever the feedback is, if you're listening with your ears and, your data, then you're adapting your product to fit that. So for example, in my case, bundles are what sell, right? So having singles in my retailers is maybe sometimes convenient, but really I need to curate a package for them that's a bundle, right? So that's what I mean by listening.
I love what you just said. Listen to your data. Oh, I love that. And I
knew you would.
I think, yeah, because I love data, coming from a tech background, but I also know that the times when we have doubts, or the times we feel a little bit lost, our data is there to provide us with truth, right? And there are patterns in everything, right? And so being able to listen to your data is a very, very important concept. So I love that you said that. Okay. I would obviously love to talk with you for 5 more hours, and maybe we'll just do that next time I'm up. But can you tell the listeners where they can find you? Because I know that there are going to be a lot of people who are like, get me some of them bags.
I think, and thank you, Stephanie. I really enjoyed, this is my first podcast, so I hope that I didn't disappoint, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for allowing me to share my story. You can find me best on Instagram or Facebook at Ever Present Giving. I also am very active on LinkedIn. I think that sharing among a professional network especially if you're, servicing business to business. I think that they're a really beautiful gift that they will call you and say, what a great gift bag. And I don't know the last time that's ever happened to you, but if you want to provide that experience to your customers, I think that's a great place to find me too. And of course, my website is everpresentgiving.com.
All right, so we will put all those links in the show notes, and go find Vess at Ever Present Giving on Instagram. She's got beautiful, beautiful visuals, and you can see these amazing little products in action. But thank you so much. That's a wrap for this episode. Such an amazing conversation. Go find Vess, go find her products, and get your hands on a set of those, because I'll tell you, it's life-changing for the holiday season. And I think once some of these bags become more available for other celebrations as well, I think having a stock on hand that I'm going to have to reluctantly let go of, but I just love the concept, and it makes so much sense. So thanks for tuning in today to hear this story. The episodes you're listening to are all featuring members of my free private Facebook group called the Real Deal Business Coaching Group, where we have daily prompts to keep you focused on building your business and sharing your everyday challenges, bi-weekly virtual coffee chats. I've had too much coffee today, apparently. Open coaching and member support from an incredible community. If you'd like to join our community, or if you'd like to be featured on this show, I'd love for you to come and hang out with us in the group. Links in the show notes, or search us up at Real Deal Business Coaching in Facebook to find us. And finally, I would love for you to join us for our next episode, where we're going to be speaking to Ashton Robertson, who creates brand narratives that help businesses and entrepreneurs strategically communicate their value with authenticity and grace. So that's going to be a great episode. Mm-hmm. I know Ashton personally, and she has such a cool story to tell. So thank you again for being here. And if you've enjoyed today's content, I would love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on. This helps us share these stories with an even bigger audience. So until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.